Hello everyone, I'm Whitney Bandel and welcome to another video from my Web 243 search engine optimization course. In this video, we're going to look at content for week 1. So the learning objectives for this week are going to be learn and understand the overlying concepts of search engine optimization, understand the differences and implications of white hat and black hat SEO practices. A required activity that you're going to need to do for this first week is going to be getting access to a website to work on that you're going to use for your projects throughout this course. Now, the idea that we're looking at is we want to be able to actually have access to the HTML pages, and we also want enough content on those pages that we can start taking a look at different keywords and thinking about the content and what keywords are going to suit best to try to optimize how your content is showing up in search engine results. It sort of depends on what websites you have access to. You might have a website that you worked on for your HTML and CSS course. Each of you should have a midterm and a final project from that you could possibly work with. Or if you have access to a website from a company that you work at or one that you're affiliated with and you are able to have access to the actual HTML files, then you could use those in addition. We're going to do a couple of different projects that are going to look at the content and how to change the content. Now, if it's a website that's for work or something and you're worried about changing the content, you could just copy those files and kind of theoretically talk about, in theory, how you would change the content. Or you could actually change the content kind of as you go along. It sort of depends on the site that you would like to choose. You could also choose a website that is on WordPress. WordPress might be a little bit more challenging when you're actually trying to set up analytics later for one of your assignments. That's going to be another big part of what we're going to do is we're going to actually set up Google Analytics on these pages. That's another reason why you want to actually have access to those sites instead of just looking at the content itself. I would suggest talking to me and figuring out if the website that you're interested in using is going to work. It's going to be okay if you do want to use one of your homework assignment websites. Maybe it's not actually going to show up in a search engine very easily, just because it doesn't have a lot of traffic already. But there's still plenty that you will learn from going through the process, and you'll be able to do it better once you're actually going through this process later in the future. So on here, I just say you will need to acquire access to a website web host. You can use your student server space. In the future, you'll need to have your own website to demonstrate your portfolio work. This is just a tip for when you're essentially graduating and just kind of thinking about where you're going to actually start getting domain space. So if you would like to use this as an opportunity to maybe create a portfolio website and to start thinking about how you're actually going to put your own work up, you could create a portfolio website for this project. For purposes of this course, access to a site with existing content is always best because the mechanics and methods applied will focus on outcomes. If you already have a site with administrative access, then you are ahead of the game. If you do not, my recommendation is to begin with the free resources offered at JCCC and perhaps begin with building a portfolio site as we go along. So your reading and supplemental materials are going to be the introduction from the textbook. And then I have a page that's linked in week 1 with supplemental materials that focus in particular on white and black hat search engine optimization. So looking at search engine optimization, which is usually shortened to SEO, search engine optimization is the process of increasing the quality and quantity of website traffic by increasing the visibility of a website or a web page to users of a web search engine. So we're looking at the results of a search engine and how we can try to make it easier for traffic to be directed to a website. SEO refers to the improvement of unpaid results, known as natural or organic results, and excludes direct traffic visitors and the purchase of paid placement. So we're looking at how people are naturally coming to your website, not how you might be paying for advertising that will help increase your odds of people finding your page. Search engine optimization may target different kinds of searches, including image search, video search, academic search, news search, and industry-specific vertical search engines. So it's good to not just think about how people are finding your website, but maybe how they're being brought in through videos, how they might be finding your content through images, and other resources. Optimizing SEO. So these are some suggestions for how you might be able to optimize a website. You can look at editing its content. We're going to look at a lot of different ways throughout this course on how you can actually change the content to try to optimize it using different keywords, trying to put those keywords throughout your title, your different headings, the body of your paragraphs, and thinking about how you can kind of naturally add those words that people are looking for into your content just to make it more accessible. You might also be adding content. Maybe the content that you have is too brief or it's not specific enough. We're also going to look at modifying HTML and associated code to both increase relevance using keywords and removing barriers to indexing used by search engines. So there's going to be a couple of different ways we're going to look at the code and think about how we could add perhaps meta descriptions to kind of help with organizing information as it's coming up into search engines, promoting a site to increase backlinks or inbound links. We're also going to take a look at kind of working with networking and how you can kind of help promote traffic. Internet marketing strategy. As an internet marketing strategy, SEO considers how search engines work, the computer programmed algorithms that dictate search engine behavior, what people search for, the actual search terms or keywords typed into search engines, and which search engines are preferred by their targeted audience. SEO is performed because a website will receive more visitors from a search engine the higher the website ranks in the search engine results page. This is called SERP. So these visitors can then be converted into customers. Here is a link I have that talks about a brief history of search engines. This is Brad Colbo's video, A Brief History of Search Engines. You can find the link to this under week 1 and under the supplemental material. So I would encourage you to go and watch that. So getting started with SEO. First, you want to really look at a topic and start setting some goals for yourself. Determine what your target audience is. In a later assignment, I'm going to have you actually describe and kind of write up a description looking at your target audience so we can start thinking about what keywords are really going to help bring in that particular audience. You want to assemble your team, decide who all is going to be responsible. Are you going to have a copywriter who's going to be in charge of creating the content? Are you going to be trying to write that yourself? Are you going to be paying for someone else to do your search engine optimization, or are you going to do that yourself? So who all is kind of responsible for all of the different facets of working on your project? You want to gather your content, figure out what sort of assets you have, what sort of copy that you have written already, develop different keywords. You really want to start with a broad list and really think about all the different ways that someone might write up content. Think about the keywords that you would have for your overall website, and then start thinking about keywords for your individual pages and really think about which are the 3 best words for each page. What really gets across the idea that page is communicating. Then you want to create your pages, or if you already have pages that exist, you want to just kind of organize them, start thinking about those keywords and how they relate to each of those pages. Consider your website structure. Balance the need of the users with the needs of search engines. In the future lectures, we're going to take a look at what some of those needs are for both of those groups. Some things that you can do to look at creating advanced website structure. These will all be talked about in your textbook. And your textbook is a really great resource for walking you through the individual steps and kind of explaining the processes. In these lectures, I'm going to try to go over the material briefly so that way you have more of an idea of what we're looking at. And then the textbook is going to give you a lot of tutorial directions on how you can actually set some of these up. The textbook is a little bit old, so sometimes the tutorials don't always correlate with exactly how you can set it up currently, but it will give you a good starting point to work with. So some concepts that we are going to look at a little bit in the future. Use a robots.txt file to instruct search engines to not index a particular page. You might have a page on your website for a particular reason, but you don't want search engines to use it with their algorithm to actually rank your site. So this would be a way for you to block off content from the search engine so that way it doesn't get mixed up. Use nofollow attributes to instruct search engine spiders that they should not follow a particular link or view that link as significant when determining rankings. Kind of similar idea. Use simple URLs that use your keywords. So in the past, you might have used words for your websites that aren't very specific. For example, with your midterm and final project for your HTML class, you might have just named every page midterm 1, midterm 2, midterm 3. Going back and looking at each of those pages and thinking about the keywords for them and thinking about what is the best words to use for those and renaming them so they make sense. And then use a htaccess file. And again, we're going to look at these concepts more in a further chapter. These are just some concepts that you can use within your HTML. Content is king. You'll probably hear this in a lot of your different classes, but it really just holds true. If you have good content, people are going to look at your content. It might take them a while to find it, but the best way that you can really improve your website is just to make sure that your content is something that people would want to look at. The original idea of content is king is actually from an essay by Bill Gates in 1996. If you are interested in reading up on that, you could check that out. Here I have a link that's called Practice of the Practice. Here's why content is king. And I have this linked in the supplemental reading so that way you can watch this video as well. Some more tips. Think about different ways that you can create communities. We'll talk about this in another lecture, but thinking about ways that you could help build traffic, build connections with people, and just kind of generate ways for people to come into your site. Build different links. Use Google Analytics. In a further lecture, we're going to look at how you can actually set up Google Analytics on your site. So that way you can see what's actually bringing people in. You can find out a little bit more too about general demographic information. Focus on social media optimization. So thinking about how you can use social media resources and optimize the keywords and the information you're using in your social media. Create pay-per-click campaigns. So before we were talking about natural ways for people to find your websites, but we're also going to look at ways that you can start thinking about that we bring people in, which keywords are going to generate the most traffic, what would be worth the most money to put into. Focus on quality score optimization, optimize for other search engines. So not just thinking about Google. Google's probably the first search engine we think about, but it's important to consider other search engines as well. Optimize for local search. This would be especially important if you had a business that has a physical location. So really thinking about how you can bring those people in. One of the first things you would want to think about is really just having the location information somewhere on their page, usually in the footer section of their website. If you don't have that address anywhere, how are people going to be able to pull up that information? So if your business is in Overland Park, for example, you would want to make sure that you have Overland Park listed somewhere on that page. Use SEO tools and plugins. We're going to look at that as well throughout this course. Now, the first topic we're going to look at is really just looking at SEO practices in general. We're going to look at SEO and kind of the best practices, whether it is something that's more frowned upon or something that is considered to be a good practice. So you'll hear these terms, black hat versus white hat SEO. And this idea comes from old Western movies where characters who typically wore white hats were the good guys and people who wore black hats were typically seen as the villains. That's kind of exactly what we're looking at in this situation. So SEO techniques are broken down into two main categories. Techniques that search engines recommend as part of a good design. Those would be your white hat practices. Techniques that search engines do not approve of and attempt to minimize the effect of. And that would be black hat. Now, both of these practices are going to bring in traffic. Typically, black hat practices will bring in traffic quicker, but then search engines will change their algorithm in some way, and eventually that traffic will start dropping off because people will just realize the content on those sites are typically poorer. White hat practices will bring in traffic slower, but it will actually bring in kind of a truer traffic that will be more long lasting. So we'll first look at white hat SEO. White hat SEO uses techniques and tactics which can be defended as not being contrary to the spirit of a search engine's express quality desires. Even the websites which are using white hat techniques might not suddenly pop up on the search results. They get long-lasting results when they finally do. So some examples of that would be using guest blogging. So if there are other people who also are talking about a similar topic, you might bring in a guest and use them to kind of help generate new traffic that is built off of their pre-existing audience. You can use link baiting. You can just make sure that the content that you have is quality content. Think about hiring good copywriters, create good internal linking, and then just using good site optimization. And this can be through a lot of things. It could just be making sure that your HTML actually validates, so that way it's ranked better, making sure that your website isn't sloppy, actually makes sense, it has good HTML semantics. White hat techniques. So here we have white hat SEO techniques, guest blogging. Process of writing a blog post for someone else's blog is called guest blogging. The incentive for doing this is getting backlinks to increase the guest blogger's site search engine rankings. Link baiting is the creation of content that incites people to link to your page from another website. The types of link bait vary tremendously, but they include high informative articles or news stories, useful sources, and sometimes controversial or sensationalistic content. Quality content. The more content rich your site is, the more valuable it will appear to the search engines, your human visitors, and to other webmasters who will be far more likely to link to your website if they find you to be a solid resource on their subject. Creating good content can be very time consuming, however, it will be well worth the effort in the long run. Internal linking. By far one of the easiest ways to stop your website from ranking well on the search engines is to make it difficult for search engines to find their way through it. Many sites use some form of scripts to enable fancy drop-down navigation. Many of these scripts cannot be crawled by the search engines, resulting in unindexed pages, so making it easier for the spiders to crawl through your links so that way they can actually index your whole site. Site optimization, the manipulation of your content, wording, and site structure for the purpose of attaining high search engine positioning, is the backbone of SEO and the search engine positioning industry. Everything from creating solid titles and meta tags to tweaking the content to maximize its search engine effectiveness is key to any successful optimization effort. Black hat SEO refers to the use of aggressive SEO strategies, techniques, and tactics that focus only on search engines and not on a human audience. Black hat SEO is more frequently used by those who are looking for a quick financial return on their website rather than a long-term investment on their website. So I don't know if you've ever encountered a website before where it was just kind of spammed content repeated over and over again. But typically these are going to be websites where they're just trying to generate traffic. They don't really care what the experience is going to be like for people. And usually it's the sort of thing where when you click on it, you're going to leave right away anyways. But some examples of this would be using hidden text, so text that you can't actually see on the page, but people are adding it to the HTML so that way it comes up more frequently in a search engine. Link farms, keyword stuffing, blog spamming, scraping, paid links, doorway pages, parasite hosting, and cloaking. And I actually have a document, an infographic that I've linked under week 1 that I want you to take a look at. This will just go into each of these definitions a little bit more. So here it says link farms. A link farm is any group of websites that all hyperlink to every other site in the group. Although some link farms can be created by hand, most are created through through automated programs and services. A link farm is a form of spamming the index of a search engine. Hidden text is textual content which your visitors cannot see, but which is still readable by the search engines. Hidden text is identified as search spam by each of the major search engines. Keyword stuffing is considered to be an unethical search engine optimization technique. Keyword stuffing occurs when a web page is loaded with keywords in the meta tags or in content. The repetition of words and meta tags may explain why many search engines no longer use these tags. Blog spam. Spamming in blogs, also called simply blog spam or comment spam, is a form of spam dexing. It is done by automatically posting random comments or promoting commercial services to blogs, wikis, guest books, or other publicly accessible online discussion boards. Any web application that accepts and displays hyperlinks submitted by visitors may be a target. Scraping is a black hat SEO spam technique in which the spammer plagiarizes content from another website to put content that's popular with search engines on his own site, often for the purpose of selling advertising back to the search engines. Paid links, the practice of purchasing links on websites solely for the increase in link popularity and rankings. Doorway pages are web pages that are created for spamming the index of a search engine by inserting results for particular phrases with the purpose of sending visitors to a different page. They're also known as bridge pages, portal pages, jump pages, gateway pages, entry pages, and by other names. Doorway pages that redirect visitors without their knowledge use some form of cloaking. Parasite hosting in computing is a process of hosting a website on someone else's server without their consent, generally for the purpose of search engine benefit. Cloaking is a search engine optimization technique in which the content presented to the search engine spider is different from that presented to the user's browser. This is done by delivering content based on the IP addresses or the user agent HTTP header of the users requesting the page. Gray hat SEO exists as middle ground. Examples are three-way link exchange, article spinning, buying old domains, and Google bombing. Here we have gray hat techniques. Three-way link exchange. Reciprocal links and link exchange has been the most widely used link building practice for years until Google made it more difficult devaluing such links in its algorithm. Webmasters adapt quickly by engaging in so-called three-way link exchange. Article spinning. This is a search engine optimization technique by which webmasters post a unique version of relevant content on their sites. It works by rewriting existing articles or parts of articles and replacing elements to provide a slightly different perspective on the topic. Many article marketers believe that article spinning helps avoid the feared penalties in the search engine results page, SERP, for using duplicate content. However, if the original articles are plagiarized from other websites, or if the original article was used without the copyright owner's permission, such copyright infringements can result in the writer facing serious legal consequences. Buying old domains. Shady SEOs buy old domains with authority and backlinks and use them to link back to the other sites they want to rank well in the search engines. Buying expired domains. Some link spammers monitor DNS records for domains that will expire soon, then buy them when they expire and replace the pages with links to their pages. However, Google resets the link data on expired domains. Google bombing. The terms Google bomb and Google washing refer to practices such as creating large numbers of links that cause a web page to have a high ranking for searches on unrelated or off-topic keyword phases, often for comical or satirical purposes. Now here is a visual comparison of these different types of SEO. So we have a ranking. You can kind of see time, risk, cost, value, and then high to low. So for time, we have white hat practices is higher, then gray, then black. Risk, so the risk is higher in this case. Cost is higher with white hat going down, and then value. So the only thing that's really kind of higher in this case for black hat is risk. Everything else it's better to use white hat practices. And one thing I did want to point out is these things are changing over time. There are practices that used to be considered normal to use, whether it was white or gray hat practice, and just by it being overused to the point where people are always finding ways to target the algorithm for search engines. Sometimes people take advantage of those algorithms. And so there are practices that might have changed over time. You might see some practices now that are considered better that people might end up overusing to a point where it's considered taking advantage of the search engines. So back to this infographic, we have advantages and disadvantages, and it's broken into in the top column going across. We have black. It says achieve search engine rankings fast. So you're going to get results quickly. And then disadvantages are it's only a short-term strategy. It has a high risk level and it's just a poor user experience. Typically, the content isn't actually what people want. Gray hat practices. Good user experience, achieve search engine rankings in a reasonable time frame. And then disadvantages are you're going to have a medium risk involved, and maybe long term, those practices might end up being seen as more negative. White hat, long term strategy, best user experience, no risk is going to be involved. Disadvantages, achieve search engine rankings in the longest time frame. So it'll just take a while. So you just want to be aware of these trends and how you're actually going to apply your strategy. It might be a bit of a combination, mostly using white hat practices, maybe using a gray hat practice. I really would suggest that you don't use the black hat practices. On-page versus off-page SEO. You might also hear the terms on-page SEO and off-page SEO in your travels. These refer to the subject of your optimization efforts, and you can employ any of the above white, gray, and or black hat SEO techniques. On-page SEO focuses on your website and content. Its aim is to ensure search engines and searchers can easily find, use, and understand your content. On-page SEO primarily helps Google and visitors decide whether your content is relevant and potentially helpful to them. Examples include creating title tags, meta descriptions, headings, paragraphs, images, URLs, and internal as well as outgoing links. So really creating the proper keywords and then using them throughout your titles, your meta descriptions, your headings, putting those inside of your URL links. So again, instead of having like midterm final project .html, you would actually have words that relate to your topics. Making sure you have alternative text descriptions on your images that will be optimized. Off-page SEO centers on external ranking signals like backlinks and online unlinked mentions of your business and or website. Assuming your content is relevant to a search query, off-page SEO mostly helps Google decide where to position it in search results. Examples include an incoming hyperlink from an external website or an unlinked mention of your company or website on social media, a website forum, a question and answer site, an online directory, or any other external website. So that's going to cover the content that we're looking at for this week. Next, I want you to check out the supplemental materials. We've already looked at this infographic, but you can read through this again on your own and pay attention to each of these. I have a Wikipedia link that is just going over the definition of search engine optimization. This can give you a bit of a history and just kind of an idea of an overview. I have a link to the video I mentioned in the lecture, A Brief History of Search Engines. Then I have this video here. Here's why content is king, practice of the practice, talking about the importance of your content. We have the infographic here, black hat versus white hat SEO. Then I have some articles which will also kind of help you just get an idea for these different practices. This is one, 8 risky black hat SEO techniques used today. This is going again over the same ideas. It might be a slightly different list, but looking at paid links, spam comments, duplicate content, article spinning, cloaking, doorway pages, keyword stuffing, visible text, and different consequences. So I want you to read through that. And then here I have top white hat and black hat SEO optimization techniques. Sandwich link on site, information and context scraping, create internal links for your web pages, check the links used for images, optimize your title tags, avoid black hat techniques. They talk about purchased and or irrelevant links, duplicate content, keyword stuffing, link farms, hidden unrelated text. So this is going to be essentially your homework reading is these articles, and then making sure you watch those 2 videos. After this, I want you to go to Project 1. Objective, learn and understand the overlying concepts of search engine optimization, understand the differences and implications of white hat and black hat SEO practices. Overview, for this project, students will research how SEO is employed throughout various sites and write a paper explaining what makes SEO important, the methods of employing SEO, and the differences between white and black hat SEO. Your response should be lengthy enough to make a point with at least 3 sources cited that are not contained within the supplemental reading material. When you are citing your sources, make sure that you are quoting in your writing if you are using a particular quote from that source, or if you are paraphrasing an idea from that source, make sure that you're actually putting in a citation that's just explaining where you got that idea from. I want to make sure that when I'm looking at the content, I know what's your own idea and what you're referencing. And it's also going to be really helpful for other people too, when they're commenting and they're looking at your writing, for them to be able to see where you got an idea. They might want to go and look at that more on their own. So just make it very clear what content you are quoting and where you've gotten that quote from. And then also, if you're paraphrasing somebody else's idea, just put a citation next to it so that way we understand, again, where that idea is from. Procedure, research, SEO, and how it's employed through a variety of sites. Methods for employing SEO, white and black hat SEO. Write up a response that addresses the above 3 topics. Post your response to the Project 1 discussion forum. and ensure you constructively responded to other classmates' posts. When you are writing this, you can also focus on the website that you are looking at. You can think about the practices that that site currently is using, or you can also talk about different ways that you could use these techniques to help with the website that you are going to be working on. You might think about which of these practices would best suit that. So this project is going to be worth 100 points. The rubric is listed below. Posting discussion and sources about the importance of SEO per the instructions, 60 points. Responses to 2 classmates plus 40 points. When you've written that up, you can go to the week 1 discussion. You can create your reply. You can copy and paste your writing in here. And again, just make sure that you are including the credits to those sources that you're using. And then also, again, make sure that you are quoting and adding citations within your writing, so that way we can tell which ideas are coming from which one of those articles. Once people have started posting, I want you to make sure you go back and you take a look and you comment on 2 other people's posts. Try to post your original project with enough time that people will be able to read. Don't try to put off your project until the last minute, because we do want to have some quality discussions on these. Don't forget, there is also the first quiz, which will have questions over content from the supplemental reading and the textbook, as well as the lecture. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, come and visit me during office hours, or again, you can go to this help section and you could write your comment here. All right, so that's everything for week 1.